They laughed at her call sign. They said it sounded weak, not fit for a real fighter pilot. 12 pilots mocked her that morning. Nobody knew war was only minutes away. Alone in the sky, she quickly destroyed 24 enemy jets in 8 minutes, saving thousands, silencing every laugh forever. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Captain Elena Voss stood alone at the back of the briefing room. Her call sign was written on the board in small white letters, Ghost Wing. Some of the pilots read it and started laughing before the meeting even began. Ghost Wing, said Lieutenant Tyler Ross, shaking his head. Sounds like a name someone picked from a cartoon. A few other pilots laughed with him. Elena did not turn around. She did not answer. She simply kept her eyes on the front wall, standing straight, saying nothing. Elena was 29 years old. She had joined the 22nd Fighter Squadron 8 months ago. In that time, she had said very few words in any room. She flew her missions quietly, landed quietly, and walked back to her quarters without talking to almost anyone. The other pilots decided long ago that her silence meant she was weak, or shy, or simply not good enough to be one of them. What none of them knew was that in exactly 39 minutes, a wave of enemy jets would cross the coastline, and every single one of their lives would depend on the quiet woman they had just laughed at. Nobody in the squadron knew much about her past. She never talked about it, and nobody ever bothered to ask. Before joining this base, Elena had spent 3 years flying in a much smaller unit, far from any big city, where there were no cameras, no crowds, and no one to impress. She had learned to fly in silence because silence kept her focused. Back then, an instructor once told her that a pilot who talks too much in the cockpit is a pilot who is thinking about the wrong things. She had carried that lesson with her ever since, even when it cost her friendships, even when it made people misread her as cold or distant. She did not fly for praise. She flew because, somewhere deep inside her, she believed that one day her skills would matter more than her words. She never imagined that day would come this soon, or that it would arrive in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday morning, disguised as just another briefing. The base was called Harmon Air Base, sitting near a large coastal city called Port Delane. It was a normal Tuesday morning. Coffee was still warm in paper cups. Nobody expected war before lunch. Then the alarm went off. The sound was loud and sharp, cutting through every hallway of the base. Red lights began flashing above every door. Colonel Grant Marsh burst into the briefing room, his face white with shock. "Scramble! Scramble now," he shouted. 24 hostile aircraft inbound. They are not testing us. This is a real attack. The laughter in the room died in 1 second. 12 pilots jumped from their chairs. Ross grabbed his helmet from the table. "How much time do we have?" he asked. 35 minutes before they reach the city, Marsh said. Radar shows they are heading straight for Port Delane. 5 separate target zones. Civilian buildings, the harbor, the airport, the stadium, and the naval docks. If even half of them get through, we are looking at thousands of deaths. The room turned into chaos. Pilots ran toward the hangar as ground crews rushed to start the jets. Marsh kept shouting information as loud as he could over the noise. "Team Falcon, take the airport. Team Hawk, take the harbor. Team Raven, take the stadium. Team Eagle, take the naval docks." He paused, breathing hard. "That leaves the downtown business area uncovered. 12 buildings, over 60,000 office workers. We have no team left for it." "I'll take it," said a quiet voice. Everyone turned. It was Elena. "Negative," Marsh said quickly. "One pilot against a full attack group downtown is not a mission, it's a funeral." "Sir," Elena said, her voice steady but soft, "there is nobody else. If I don't go, those buildings fall." Before Marsh could argue further, Elena was already running toward her jet. Minutes later, 12 fighter jets lifted off the runway one after another, engines roaring into the morning sky. Elena's jet, tail number 271, climbed the fastest and turned hard toward the downtown skyline. Her call sign came over the radio one final time before the real fighting began. "Ghostwing is airborne," she said. "Moving to cover downtown alone." Ross, already in the air with Team Falcon, shook his head inside his cockpit. "She's going to get herself killed," he muttered. But there was no more time to argue. The enemy aircraft appeared on every radar screen at once. 24 fast-moving jets, split into 5 separate attack groups, diving toward the coast like a swarm of hornets. At the airport, Team Falcon fought hard against 4 incoming jets that were armed with missiles built to destroy runways and terminal buildings. Smoke was already rising from one of the parking areas after a stray missile hit close to a fuel truck. At the harbor, Team Hawk struggled against 5 enemy jets trying to sink docked cargo ships and fishing boats loaded with workers. At the stadium, Team Raven fought 4 jets targeting a morning sports event where thousands of children and families had gathered to watch a school competition. At the naval docks, Team Eagle faced 8 enemy jets, the largest group of all, aiming to destroy 2 anchored Navy ships and the sailors working on their decks. And downtown, 3 enemy jets flew low between the tall office buildings, preparing to strike the financial district, where nobody below even knew death was approaching from the sky. Elena arrived above the city in seconds. She dropped altitude fast, weaving her jet between 2 skyscrapers with a skill that looked almost impossible. Office workers pressed against glass windows, watching in shock as a single fighter jet chased enemy planes through the middle of the city. Her first missile hit an enemy jet just as it lined up a shot on the Crest Hill Tower, a building with more than 7,000 workers inside. The explosion lit up the morning sky for a second, then faded into smoke. "One down," Elena said calmly over the radio, as if she were reporting the weather. Her second shot destroyed a jet trying to use a parking garage as cover, thinking the narrow streets would protect it from being hit. It did not. The third and final jet, seeing its whole group destroyed, turned toward the Grand Central Hospital, aiming for one last act of destruction. Elena had no missiles left. She pushed her jet forward and fired her cannon instead, striking the enemy plane just before it reached the hospital roof. It broke apart in the sky and fell harmlessly into an empty parking lot below. "Downtown group eliminated," Elena reported. "No civilian casualties. Moving to assist naval docks." On the radio, silence followed for exactly 3 seconds. Then everyone began speaking at once. "Did she just say 5 kills in under 2 minutes? That's not possible. Ghostwing just saved the whole financial district by herself." But the fight was far from over. At the naval docks, Team Eagle was losing badly. 8 enemy jets surrounded 2 American ships, and enemy missiles were only seconds away from launching. "We can't hold them off," came the desperate voice of the Team Eagle leader. "They're going to hit the ships." Elena's jet appeared behind the enemy group from an angle nobody expected, flying low over the water where their radar could not easily see her. Her first missile struck the enemy formation leader before any of them knew they were under attack. The explosion caused the rest of the group to break formation in panic, scattering in different directions. But their panic made them easy to track. One by one, Elena's missiles found their targets. A jet trying to dive toward the ship deck. A jet trying to hide behind a tanker truck near the loading area. A jet trying to escape toward open water. Each one fell before it could fire a single shot. Below, sailors on the deck of the ships had no idea how close they had come to disaster. Some of them had only just noticed the enemy jets moments earlier, and were still running toward emergency positions when the first explosion lit up the sky above them. One young sailor later said he saw a streak of white smoke cross the horizon so fast that he thought it was a shooting star, right up until the enemy jet above him turned into a fireball. Nobody on the ships ever saw Elena's aircraft directly. They only saw the results of what it did. Within 90 seconds, all 8 enemy jets at the naval docks were gone. Both American ships remained untouched, their crews staring up at the sky in stunned silence, unaware of how close they had come to disaster. "Naval docks clear," Elena said. "Ships and crew safe. Moving to the stadium." At the stadium, families were still unaware of the danger above them. For enemy jets circled overhead, preparing a strike that would have caused massive loss of life among the children and parents gathered below. Elena arrived just in time. Her first missile destroyed the lead jet as it began its dive toward the stadium field. Her second hit a jet trying to use the parking structure as cover. Her third caught an aircraft attempting to flee toward the coastline. Her fourth and final missile ended the group less than a minute after she arrived, all without harming a single person on the ground. "Stadium secure," she reported. "All civilians safe. Moving to the harbor." At the harbor, Team Hawk was down to 2 working jets, both damaged and low on fuel. The enemy group had already destroyed several fishing boats and was preparing a final attack on the largest cargo ship in port, a vessel carrying hundreds of dock workers. Elena's jet came in low over the water. Her cannon fire tore through the first enemy plane before it even noticed her. Her remaining missiles handled the rest, clearing all 5 enemy jets from the harbor in under a minute. "Harbor secure," Elena said. "All workers and vessels safe. Moving to assist the airport." By this point, every pilot in the sky had stopped talking about anything except her. At the airport, Team Falcon had taken heavy damage, and all 4 enemy jets remained, preparing a final attack on a runway full of passenger planes. Inside the terminal, hundreds of travelers were pressed against the windows, watching the battle unfold in the sky above the runway. A mother held her young son close, both of them staring up as smoke trails crossed the clouds. None of them understood yet how close they had come to losing everything. Ground crews had already been told to clear the tarmac, but there had been no time to move the parked passenger jets waiting to take off, each one full of people who had no idea their morning flight had turned into the middle of a war zone. Elena's last 4 missiles ended the fight in seconds, one jet after another falling into an empty field beside the runway, far from any people or aircraft. Passengers watching from terminal windows had no idea how close their planes had come to disaster. Later, some of them would tell reporters that they saw a single fighter jet moving faster than anything they had ever seen, gone before they could even react, leaving only smoke and silence behind it. "Airport secure," Elena reported. "All enemy aircraft eliminated. 0 civilian losses. 0 military losses. Mission complete." For a long moment, nobody on the radio said a word. 24 enemy jets. 1 pilot. 8 minutes. Nobody could quite believe what they had just watched happen on their own radar screens. "All units," Colonel Marsh finally said, his voice shaking with something between shock and pride, "return to base. Outstanding work today. Truly outstanding." Then he added something nobody expected. "Ghost Wing, you have the lead for landing. Everybody follows you home." 12 jets descended toward Harmon Air Base in a straight line, with Elena's aircraft in front. In the hangar below, ground crews stood watching, having heard everything over the radio. In the debrief room afterward, Colonel Marsh stood in front of the same pilots who had laughed that morning. He held a printed report in his hand. 24 confirmed kills, he read aloud. All 5 target zones defended. 0 civilian deaths. 0 military losses. All credit to Captain Elena Voss. Nobody laughed this time. Nobody made a joke about her call sign. Ross stood up slowly. "This morning, I made fun of your name," he said. "I'm sorry. You saved my life today, along with everyone else in this room." Elena looked at him for a moment, then gave a small, quiet nod. "Just doing my job," she said softly. "That's what we're all here for." Marsh walked over and placed his own squadron patch in her hand. "Captain Voss," he said, "as of today, you are squadron leader. Nobody in this room has earned it more than you." For the first time since anyone could remember, Elena smiled. It was not a big smile. It was small and simple, but it filled the room with something warm that had never been there before. The next morning, when 12 jets lifted off for a routine patrol, the formation looked different. Elena was not flying quietly in the back anymore. She was leading from the front, and every pilot behind her followed without question. "Ghost Wing, you have the lead," Marsh said over the radio, his voice full of respect. "Roger that," Elena answered calmly. "Ghost Wing has the lead. I'll bring everyone home safe." The mockery was gone. The respect had been earned. A quiet woman who never needed to raise her voice had shown everyone that the loudest strength is sometimes found in complete silence. And from that day forward, nobody at Harmon Air Base ever doubted the power of Ghost Wing again. Years later, new pilots who arrived at Harmon Air Base would hear the story before they ever met her in person. They would hear how 12 pilots once laughed at a call sign, and how that same pilot went on to save an entire city in 8 minutes, alone, without asking for permission or credit. Some of them found it hard to believe until they saw the framed photo of tail number 271 hanging near the entrance of the squadron building, with a small plaque underneath that read simply, "Silence is not weakness. It is control." Elena never talked much about that day, even after she became a legend within the squadron. When new recruits asked her what it felt like to fly against 24 enemy aircraft alone, she usually gave the same quiet answer. "I wasn't thinking about how many there were," she would say. "I was only thinking about who was underneath me." It was a simple answer, but it was the truest thing she ever said, and it was the reason everyone who flew with her eventually stopped laughing and started listening.